Hello guys, and today I'm going to talk briefly about my views on the recent interview that Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, also known as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, had with Oprah Winfrey, who, for anybody outside the West, is a world famous American chat show host, okay? She's quite possibly also the richest woman in America, and was a chat show host for many years before setting up her own TV company and her own TV network, okay? Anyway, basically the backstory is this. Meghan Markle is a mixed race former actress, okay, who featured in a TV sitcom in America called Suits. Her mother is what the Americans call an African American, what we would call black, and her dad is white, which makes her mixed race. Okay? Which is the most polite way we describe people who have, different ethnic parents, okay? Now, she met Prince Harry. They got married, and she became a member of the royal family and was expected to behave like a member of the royal family, okay? This meant that all her security and costs would be borne generally by the taxpayer, but in return, she and her husband, Prince Harry, also known as the Duke of Sussex, would have to perform royal duties. This usually means going abroad and representing Britain within the Commonwealth, opening things, being patrons of certain charities, and generally trying to promote Britain abroad, as a sort of celebrity, if you like, and also trying to raise awareness for good causes, and just generally be a face for Britain, and sometimes talking to less fortunate or whatever, maybe. Sometimes visiting schools, maybe a hospital sometimes, all manner of things. It can involve lots of different duties. I'm not an expert on what royal duties are, but now and again there are things they're just expected to turn up to, even if they're bored, and just attend, including, various royal functions. Sometimes they may turn up to things like the Royal Variety Performance, not necessarily them in particular, but royals in general, and appear on the balcony when, for example, there may be a specific royal event, or things like that, okay? So they're just meant to be face of the royals and celebrities, that also are meant to help charities in some way, and provide some sort of moral support or publicity for certain good causes and charities, okay, including opening, various, like, openings of, new buildings, or, talking about perhaps a charity in a certain way, things like that. Anyway, that's a summary of what some of the things some royals do, okay? I know that Prince Andrew, until the controversy about his former friend, who was later convicted for being a paedophile. I know that Andrew used to go abroad a lot and tried to encourage other countries to invest in Britain, and he was seen as a sort of business envoy, okay? And until all this stuff about, you know, him associated him with a paedophile blew up, right? He was well known, it was well known in the circles for trying to do a lot to encourage people to invest in Britain. He visited a lot of places, and sometimes some of the newspapers would claim he was one of the hardest working royals in that regard for trying to go abroad and trying to get business for Britain and things like that, and encourage, I don't know, promoting Britain in various ways. However, it was criticised also for spending a lot of money, taxpayers' money, in achieving that. That's another matter. So those are some of the things that royals do. Okay. Now I'm not going to go into whether the royal family is good or bad overall. I think the majority of people in Britain think that it's good for tourism. One of the reasons a lot of people think we should keep the royals is because there's a lot of Americans and people from all over the world who come over to Britain just so that they can look at Buckingham Palace and places like that and say, oh wow, there's a real queen living in there, wow. That sort of thing. It's just a publicity thing and helps with tourism in many ways. And some people believe that perhaps the money we get from tourism outweighs the cost of having them. Okay? I'm not an expert on the finances of this. Okay? Now, the point is this. Meghan became a royal, and then she just didn't like it. And she and Harry decided they disliked being royal so much that they decided to leave the country. Originally they moved to Canada before moving to America. They clearly disliked living in Britain so much. Now Meghan claims that the press just didn't like her. Meghan claims in the interview that she had with Oprah that the press were out to get her because she was half black, half white, and she felt that some members of the press just probably didn't like her because they thought Harry should marry a white woman rather than a woman who was half black. To be honest, I didn't really see that in the newspapers. It's what she claimed. But my personal view is that a lot of the time the press started to criticise them for hypocrisy. A lot of the criticisms they made originally in the press in the past were about Harry and Meghan telling people that people should be more careful about resources and saving the planet and not being wasteful, and then going off in private jets. And some people thought this was hypocritical. Okay, and some of the press pointed this out. They pointed out some areas of what they called hypocrisy, and some areas where perhaps they just didn't like the way she was. I think Meghan then went on to explain in the interview with Oprah why she didn't like behaving like a royal. I think she found it too restrictive. There were also in the past a lot of newspaper reports that a lot of servants who worked, who were officially charged with working for Meghan, resigned because Meghan wouldn't do as the servants said, apparently. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but the allegation made in the newspapers was that Meghan just didn't like doing as she was told. Now, you might think, what do I mean here? A princess, well, for simple terms, even though she's a duchess, duchess princess is similar because if she married, Harry, that makes her a sort of princess, I think, right? Right. So, for that reason, I think you might think, what are you talking about? A princess won't do what a poor servant says, but that's correct. Absolutely, totally correct. What happens is there's various conventions within the royal family, okay, which often the Queen herself has decided, and rather than the Queen personally telling every royal what to do, that's often, I think, left to the servants to sort of advise royals as to what they can and cannot do, or where they might be doing things which might be wrong, or things like that, because even the royals have a lot of rules about where they can and cannot do, what clothes they can and cannot wear, even down, I think, to a level of what kind of tights women are supposed to wear, and things like that. The idea, I read, for example, that there's a rule, I think, where, because some people kept asking, why does Kate Middleton, in the past, keep wearing coats everywhere, even when it's perhaps not quite so cold? And apparently one of the reasons is that, I don't understand this and I could be wrong on this, but I believe there is a convention that the royals, for example, royal women are supposed to wear coats when they're outside all the time, just because it shows some sort of modesty. And I think generally the idea is that most of the time when the royals are at a public function, they are supposed to show, modesty and cover themselves up to a certain extent, not quite to the level of Muslims, but so that they don't look like, what some people might call sluts or tarts, okay? Right? So they're looked in some way conservative and respectable, okay? And they're supposed to always dress in a conservative or respectable way when they're carrying out public functions. And the view is, so for example, there may be certain clothes that are considered acceptable, some clothes which aren't considered acceptable, and things like that, okay? And so there'd be lots and lots of rules that they would have to follow. I think Meghan didn't want to follow any rules. I think she thought, I'm a princess. Why do I need to follow any rules at all? I mean, providing I'm not harming anybody and I'm not breaking the general law of the land, why do you care what I do? And I think the problem is that for Meghan, and I think this pretty much came out in the interview, she just didn't like the restrictions that were placed on her as a now royal. She, I think, wanted her cake and eat it. She gave the impression that she didn't say these words, but she gave the impression, but didn't actually state this, that she expected perhaps servants to bow down to her and everybody to do as she wanted, but she didn't expect to do anything in return. She said that she was surprised that she was expected to bow before the Queen. She couldn't understand why Prince Harry had to bow in front of the Queen when, as far as Meghan was concerned, look, it's your gran. Why are you bowing down to your gran? And she couldn't understand that. I think it's not bowing, maybe not the word bowing and curtsying. Yes, exactly. Right, so I think it's curtsying. I'm not sure the correct word, but it was definitely curtsying, okay, in her case, okay? And so I think they were puzzled by the curtsying, okay? And I think Meghan thought that she would be treated almost like Hollywood royalty, where in Hollywood, you have a team of bodyguards around you. You go pretty much wherever you want, and it's just a matter of money. If you've got enough money, you just get enough security guards with you, and you go pretty much wherever you like that will allow you. I don't mean someone could just demand to go into the White House immediately, but anywhere that they're not literally banned by the organisations they want to visit from going to. Whereas in the royal family, they are banned from going anywhere that the royal establishment doesn't want them to go to. That's the difference, okay? And whereas in America, there is, as Hollywood royalty, I don't think there's really any organisation literally banning them from going anywhere. There may be times when perhaps some places may not be, they may have something in their contract saying you cannot do certain things, but it depends on the acting role. Generally, actors can go wherever they want, pretty much, if they want to, or even rich people. I mean, for example, if Donald Trump wanted to go out and get a burger from McDonald's, he could just walk out and get a burger. Even though he claims to be a billionaire. I've used clever wording there. He claims to be a billionaire. I've used very clever wording right there, right? I'm skeptical that he's as rich as he claims, but that's my personal opinion, okay? There's nobody's going to stop him. All he needed to do was get enough security guards to walk into McDonald's with him, or he could just go and sneak into McDonald's thinking if he just looked like a regular guy, nobody would probably recognise him, maybe. But perhaps if he covered his hair in some way, or he covered, or because people might not recognise him anyway, or because they might think he's not going to go to McDonald's. He's a billionaire, not knowing that Donald Trump actually liked McDonald's. Okay, and regular things like that. Whereas when you're a royal, you can't do things like that. Okay, they can't just suddenly decide, generally, to go into a McDonald's. Generally, they're expected to, I'm talking about the main royals. I'm not talking about some minor royal that nobody really knows about. That's perhaps, the grandson of somebody. I'm not an expert on, the royal line on this. But, if you're a main royal, then, then my understanding is, you're just fed in Buckingham Palace or wherever you happen to live. You're just fed by servants. You're expected to eat the food they give you, and you're expected to only eat either there or at the functions that you're at. Generally, you can't just suddenly decide, I want to go into McDonald's and eat a burger. You can't do that. It's not allowed. And there's all these restrictions about where they can and cannot go because of security, essentially. They're worried that somebody somewhere might try to assassinate them. And so a lot of it's about security. Another reason is it could also be because of what I'm going to call the Ed Milliband incident. They probably think, what the hell is the Ed Milliband incident? Well, Ed Milliband is not a royal, but he was somebody who in the past was trying to become the Prime Minister of Great Britain. He was photographed trying to eat a beef burger. Badly. Now he wasn't. I don't think he had a photo taken as part of a photo opportunity. I think he was just genuinely trying to eat a beef burger. I think he was just on the campaign trail. He just felt like eating a burger because he's probably just hungry, and so he decided to eat a beef burger. A photographer took some photos of this, and they showed him eating a beef burger, but not in their view particularly well. It just made him look stupid, right? Not because he was deliberately trying to be stupid while eating a beef burger. They just thought he just had a strange expression on his face or something like that. For whatever reason, it just didn't look a good photo. Okay, and maybe, the royal, the civil servants and the royal household just don't want there to be any bad photo opportunities, possibly where somebody might take a photo, but it doesn't make them look that good. Okay, so anyway, there's an awful lot of restrictions in being a royal. You can't just go out and go where you want. You can't just wear what you want. To some extent, it is like being an actor in a theatre play, where once you're in that theatre play, you're expected not to leave the stage unless you're told to leave the stage. You're meant to just say whatever you're supposed to say, pretty much, and play the role while you're there, and you can't just go up and do what you want while you're on the stage. Usually, I'm obviously not talking about an impromptu, stage play. I'm not talking about where there's a stage play featuring a lot of improvisation by the actors as part of the role, right? I'm talking about an average stage play, okay? And that I don't think she could take. I think she just realised that she wanted her freedom back. I think she realised that living in, a fantastic building is not as good as you think it is, and having a nice royal title isn't perhaps as good as you think it is if you cannot do what you want, if you cannot see the people you want to see when you want to see them, and if you cannot do what you want when you want, and perhaps if you cannot say what you want when you want. And I think for her it was just too restrictive, I think, and this came across in the interview. I think it's a shame in some ways, because I know, for example, in the past Harry had a girlfriend before Meghan. I think they dated for a few years. I could be wrong on the time scale. And then they split up because the woman said that she just didn't like the restrictions, she didn't like the press. I think she just didn't want the restrictions of lifestyle of being a royal herself. So they split up so that she could then become an ordinary person again, have her life again, and not worry about what the press would think, because she'd just be an ex-girlfriend. And just being an ex-girlfriend would make her no longer, after a while, she'd be no longer newsworthy, because she'd just be an ordinary person again. And so I think Harry thought that when he met Meghan, he probably thought that Meghan, being a celebrity to some extent in Hollywood, given that Meghan was used to dealing with perhaps fans, maybe signing autographs, which is something that the royals are not allowed to do, by the way, and things like that, but used to some sort of publicity. I think he thought that she could cope with it better. Okay, and he probably thought that given that she'd already been used to, being in the public eye, being used to the press in America, being used to dealing with fans and things like that, he probably thought Meghan could cope with it. And thought, well, it's probably going to be very similar to the restrictions you have in Hollywood, but it probably isn't, because as I said, in Hollywood, if you've got enough money, you can just pay for security to let you go anywhere you like that will have you, in simple terms. So I think she just couldn't cope with it. Now, how far did she go in this interview, and do I support her on this? Now, there are people, for example, very recently, there was a former newspaper editor who became a TV presenter over here, and is a sort of chat show type TV presenter, okay, who basically was fired recently for saying that in his view, Meghan was a barefaced liar. As I said, in his view, not mine, but his. Now, he basically, I'm not sure if he used his exact words, but he basically said that she lied about practically everything she ever says. He didn't believe a word anything she said, and he thought that the interview was full of lies. Now, I will be honest with you. I watched the interview, and I'm going to be very honest. She came across as a pathetic whinger. She came across as somebody who was whinging about things that many ordinary members of the public would think you didn't know how lucky you were. You had guaranteed security. You didn't need to work ever again. You would never have to worry about sleeping on the streets. You would never have to worry about where your next meal was coming from. You would never have to do hard work, physical hard work, like working, I don't know, on a building site to have the lifestyle you had. All you had to do was turn up, shake a few hands, say a few things, and that was all you had to do to live in the public site, a life of luxury. Okay? In the public's view. Okay? And so I think she probably came across as a pathetic whinger, but I didn't think she came across as a liar. I believe she genuinely believed what she said she believed. I believe, many people said, she said that she didn't fully know what she was letting herself in for before she became, married to Harry. There were many people like Megyn Kelly and, as I said, Piers Morgan, who, as I said, was the TV presenter who's recently fired from, in real terms. Okay, officially he quit. Officially he left. Unofficially, everybody knows he was fired. More on that and later. Okay. From a main show, he was a presenter. A morning show, he was a presenter on. Okay. And he was one of the main two presenters. Okay. The other presenter was a woman. Okay. So it's basically a man and woman presenting team. Okay. And he was the man. Okay. Now, and the point is, she claimed that she didn't Google his name, Google anything about him, or Google anything about how the rules worked. Piers and Meghan, sorry, not Meghan, Piers and Meghan Kelly, not Meghan Markle, the princess, but Meghan Kelly, the former chat show host, okay, who I believe has got her own podcast now, but I don't think she's on the telly anymore, but I could be wrong, okay, basically said she was lying, in their view, because they didn't believe anybody was so stupid as to not Google everything about Harry and not trying to Google all about the royal family. I believe Meghan Markle, the princess, was probably telling the truth. I think she just had this fairyland dream about what it would be like to be a princess. I think she perhaps read too many novels as a child about, children's novels about becoming a princess and, finding a prince and a woman from nowhere marrying a prince and then becoming a princess. And she probably had this fairyland dream about it would be fantastic, they'd live in luxury, everybody would bow down to her, and, she could go wherever she wanted, she would should be treated like a superstar. She could travel all over the world as a superstar. And I think she probably had this dream in her head. And she didn't bother looking at things on the internet because she probably thought, well, I'm not going to judge what a bunch of, vindictive journalists think about Harry. I'll judge how I think he is as a person rather than how some people who've never really met him think he is. I think regarding the royals, I think she just had this fairyland dream that it'd be like Hollywood, and it'd be like being in the White House at worst, and things like that. I don't think she fully thought it through, but she did come across as a pathetic whinger. At one stage she talked about thinking about killing herself, which made her look terrible. It made her look like a really pathetic, person. When you consider there are some people, for example, who have been told as children, perhaps sometimes even 9 or 10 years old, that they are going to die within 6 months because they have an incurable illness that cannot be cured. There are people who've been, told, that they've lost a job and that skill is no longer wanted, and they'll find it very difficult to get another one, and they may end up sleeping rough on the streets. There are people who have lost their legs or something in an accident. There are, Prince Harry was in the army, okay? And in the army, people can and have died in wars. Prince Harry personally went to Afghanistan, where he personally admitted to killing people. He said that he had personally killed members of the Taliban, personally, in Afghanistan. So he knows about this. And okay, we're not talking about him, we're talking about her. But even then, she knew that he'd been to Afghanistan, things like that. And surely she must understand the perception of, oh my God, this guy was involved in a war, and she must have had some sort of understanding of war, and knowing that her problems were nothing compared to being in a war zone where you probably don't get a very comfortable life, where you could die, and it's kill or be killed, and things like that. And that's a far worse scenario to be in than I must sit at home and just keep my mouth shut and do whatever I'm told. Particularly when you consider she chose to marry Harry. Now, if, for example, somebody married somebody when they were just, a shop worker, and then one day they went on to become the President of the United States, and this woman could never know that this man would ever become the President of the United States. I can understand she may not be getting more frustrated about it because she never chose that, okay? And she would then have a tough decision as to whether to stay with the man she loves or have her freedom. But the point is, for example, the former First Lady, Melania Trump, for example, said that she didn't really want her husband to be the president because she didn't want the restrictions on their life, but She said she would support him being the president simply because she knew it was what he wanted. She didn't want the lifestyle, she didn't want the restrictions on the lifestyle that she would have to incur by becoming the president, but she said that she would support him because it was what he wanted, even though it wasn't really what she wanted. Not because she didn't want him to be president because of his values or anything like that, but she just didn't want the restrictions on their life or the problems, That's another matter. But at least she had the guts to be honest about that. But she did not continually whinge all the time about, oh my God, it's terrible being a first lady. Oh my God, I can't go where I want. Oh my God, I felt like killing myself because I had all these, security agents telling me I couldn't go where I wanted. I don't think it was like that, okay? And so I think, Meghan came across as a pathetic whiner. And I think that's turned the public completely against her. Okay, I think also Harry did a similar thing, and many people were baffled that Harry would also come across as a whinger in this way, considering as he was seen as the tough guy that chose to go to Afghanistan and insisted on going to a war zone and insisted in fighting in a war zone when he didn't actually have to as a royal. And so I think as well as that, I think the public in Britain see them as traitors for leaving the country. They think they have the right to do so, but the view is, okay, you wanted your freedom, you've got it, now please leave us. Now just stop. Now just go away and leave everybody alone and stop complaining, right? And, so I think the British public don't really like them anymore. And I think that if they do return, they will. Then I doubt there'll be many people turning up to cheer them in Britain. I mean, there may be in other countries, but not in Britain, because they're seen as, traitors that betrayed Britain in some way by leaving and saying bad things about, the royals and other royals. He also criticised some of the royals as well. Meghan claimed that she went to human resources. Complained and human resources, to do with the, the monarchy and things like that. I can't remember the precise name now, but, basically said, I'm sorry, Meghan, there's nothing we can do for you because you don't actually work as a civil servant. You're a member of the royal family. You're not a civil servant. And, the way the civil servants have done their job correctly, you may not necessarily like what they were told to do, but I'm afraid they were only doing their job. And, pretty much. And so I'm afraid there's nothing we can do because you don't work officially as an employee, and the employees that you may be complaining about were simply doing their job by telling you what you could and couldn't do officially. And so I think she complained about that as well. She complained that she couldn't take it. She did complain. One of her criticisms, which I think is valid. Okay, in fact, the only criticism, I think, is that she said that Harry had told her that a member of the royal family was concerned about what colour the baby might be when they had a baby. I think that's a bit nasty. I personally am not against mixed race marriages, relationships, babies. I personally don't care about it at all. I will be totally honest. There are people like my mother who doesn't agree with mixed race relations. She doesn't think it's nice that babies are born with, being neither one colour of skin nor the other. I don't share that view. I don't personally care about skin colour. I never really have. I never understood it, to be perfectly honest. Who cares what colour people's skin is? I mean, alright, if you've got some sort of sexual fetish, I get it. You may prefer one skin colour to another skin colour just in terms of what turns you on or something. But in terms of prejudice, I've never understood it. People cannot help what colour they were born, and who cares? Right? I really don't get it. But that might be a bit nasty. But I think maybe there may have been some royals, because it was going to be a senior royal that said this, but Harry refused to name who it was. Now, there might be some royals who may have been worried about how the press might perceive a mixed-race royal child. There may be some older traditionalists who might think it's wrong and he should marry a white person. Some people may have been cynical and thought that he only married a mixed race woman because she was mixed race, just so that then the royal family would then appeal to mixed race people as well, so that the royal family could now say, what do you mean we're white elitists? Look, I have a mixed race wife and a mixed race baby. What are you talking about? And so some people may have thought it was a ploy to appeal to the black community. I don't know. But, it was what she said, if assuming it was true, was nasty. And that's the only criticism I can think of. But the rest of it is, okay, she just wasn't happy. Now, I don't think I said this earlier, but if I did, I apologise for repeating myself. A few years ago, there was a woman who won the UK version of the TV show The Apprentice. Okay, her name was Stella English, and I don't mean her name was Stella and she's English. I mean her actual name was Stella English. Her surname, believe it or not, really is English. Amazing, but true. The word English. I don't mean just English, but the word English. Anyway, she won the show and then became officially Alan Sugar's official apprentice. Okay. She was basically disappointed with the experience of what happened after winning the show. She felt that the work she was given was not worthy of her. She felt that she didn't see Alan Sugar personally enough. She didn't feel she was mentored enough. And she felt that she was just generally disappointed with the experience of what happened after she won the show. So much so that she decided to actually sue Alan Sugar for compensation and for what she called constructive dismissal, I believe. Right? I can't remember exactly, but it was something like that. Okay? And so she sued him for compensation. She lost in court, but she sued him for compensation. He then sued her after that for basically, I can't remember what it's, bringing a malicious prosecution against him or something like that. Okay, or bring a malicious case against him. He actually lost that because the argument was that although, and this is quite interesting to understand, that although she didn't have a case, it was believed that she had reasonable grounds to believe she had a case, even though it was determined that she didn't have a case. So they're saying she should have had the opportunity to bring the case based on the facts, because she, not being a lawyer, not being a total expert, believed that there was a possibility of her having a case against him. The bottom line is, she was just disappointed with the experience, okay? And she had this she didn't probably fully research the show. She may not have researched what happened to previous winners. She just had these fairyland dreams in her mind about what it'd be like to win and things like that. Okay? And maybe she didn't even watch some of the previous, episodes of the show, when, in my view, that some of the winners were given really stupid jobs, right? In my opinion, or they were almost like booby jobs, but not booby jobs. Well, it was like a booby prize. No, I'm not talking even about boobs and sex. I mean, literally, the sort of prize where you win it, but you don't really want to win it because it's rubbish. Okay, and I'm digressing here, so I'll get back to it. So basically, we had this woman who was just disappointed, right, with her winning The Apprentice and what it meant to win The Apprentice, and and the experience afterwards, and she was just disappointed. But I'm not saying that what she said was a pack of lies. I'm not going to say like, Piers Morgan, what Piers Morgan said was that this woman was lying about her experiences or anything like that. I think it was just simply that there was just the dream and the reality were different. And I think the problem is, for Meghan, the dream and the reality were different. And I think also being an American didn't help. And I'll explain why I say that. You see, Americans are brought up in their society to hate and detest government. Even governments themselves tell the American public that government is evil. Even if they are a senior politician, even if they themselves are the president of America, they will tell you that government is evil. Even if they are the president, because the whole American ethos is about small government, about pretty much most of it, particularly amongst Republicans. The idea is that you, the public, should do things yourself. You should be in charge of your own destiny, and the government should just keep out the way, should not be involved, and should be involved as little as possible in your lives, and you should sink or swim by your own efforts without the government being in any way helping or hindering you. That is the American way. Americans are brought up to know your rights and stand up against the government or against the police or against absolutely anybody that is infringing on your rights. The hidden message generally in America is government and the establishment are generally bad. Whereas in Britain, we're brought up to sort of generally do as you're told, respect the institutions. The government is often there to help you, right? And you should generally do as you're told. And you should follow the law, and you should not try to upset the authorities too much. They're on your side. An example. In America, people are told, do not talk to the police. The advice in America, even by politicians themselves, by senior, I believe, senators even, has been, do not talk to the police if you're arrested. Refuse to cooperate with them as much as you can until you have a lawyer present. And when you have a lawyer present, try to answer as few questions as possible. This is the general advice given to, in America. The police are bad. They're out to get you. If they've arrested you, they're out to get you. Don't trust them at all. Whereas in Britain, the general perception is the police are impartial. And if you are genuinely innocent, 100% innocent, and you cooperate with the police, and the police can see that, and it's clearly obvious that you're innocent, the police will help to, free you as soon as possible. In other words, if you cooperate with if you're genuinely innocent and you cooperate with the police will help you to get off quicker. Right? The quicker you cooperate with the police, the quicker you can leave, and the quicker they'll move on to somebody else. Okay? If there is a genuine, if it's proved there is a crime, but they just don't know who did it. Whereas in American views, even if you're 100% innocent, even if you absolutely are 1,000,000% innocent, do not talk to the police and don't cooperate with them unless unless a lawyer tells you to. And even then, do the bare minimum the lawyer tells you to. It's a different mentality. Over here, we're brought up to respect traditions, respect the police, respect the rule of law in many ways, and respect the authorities. Over there, they're brought up to hate and resent and detest them. And so, someone like Meghan was brought up to not do as you're told, follow, be a free person. Over here, they're told, sort of conform to some extent. And so, I believe there was a culture clash based on those values. Now, Harry and Meghan are in America, and they have said that they're happy in America. Maybe he feels that Prince Harry said that he thought that other members of the royal family are trapped. He didn't say imprisoned, but he pretty much meant that, I think. I don't think if he said, I don't remember if he said prisoned, but I know he sort of meant they're trapped in a lifestyle they cannot get out of, and they're trapped and they have to do as they're told, and he feels that he's freer. But the point is, royalty isn't for everybody, and it's perhaps highlighted that for some people, living in a palace, living in an expensive house, isn't worth it if you can't do what you want and see who you want when you want. Everything has a price. And sometimes, I don't know where the phrase comes from, but we say something like, there's no such thing as a free lunch. I don't know if it's an American phrase or a British phrase, but I have heard that phrase, okay? Or a phrase from another country even, okay? But there you go. So I'm being called now by my mum. I think I've babbled on enough. So there you go. It was, I think, in summary, Meghan was probably telling the truth about her experiences, but she came across as a pathetic whinger when there are other people in the world who have far more serious problems than she ever had. Okay? Thanks for watching, guys. Bye!